Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. I do truly appreciate it. And today I want to talk to you about something I found at Barnes and Noble. Ever hear of it? Well, I was up in a little town you never heard of called Weirsdale, Florida. Middle of nowhere, don't ask why. But coming home from Weirsdale, Florida, I drove through a place called The Villages Notorious. Anyway, look it up. But in the Villages, there is a Barnes and Noble. And I had a little bit of time between my ETA and my needed ETA where I was going. So I figured, hey, stop in at Barnes and Noble. When I stop in at Barnes and Noble, I'm usually interested to see if I can find signed books. Sometimes they'll have new books that are signed by the author, and I've got a few. I've showed you a few. Anyway, they did. But the ones that I was interested in, I already had. However, I stumbled into something that kind of boggled my mind, made the eyeballs a little bit twitchy. And that is a book called Frankenstein. Ever hear of it? Well, I've read the book. I've got some nice editions of this book. You've heard of the book. I love the movie. Boris Karloff was awesome. Anyway, I stumbled into this book. No big deal, really, except it was $10. $10. And I picked it up, and I said, wow, the cover looks pretty cool. I like the artwork on the cover of this book. So it caught my attention. I picked it up. I flipped it over, saw that it was $10. And I started thumbing through. First off, I said, hey, if this is a first print, I'm interested. Because I started collecting books, started collecting first edition hardcovers. And then I realized that first edition didn't mean necessarily what I thought it meant. That there was a first print, first edition. That they might have a second edition with a first edition with a second print run, and it's a later batch of books. So first edition, first print was something in that world that people cared about, and so became something that I cared about. And it still sticks, even though this is far, far many years bygone, the first edition of a book, it is still a first print, and it has a number line that goes all the way down to 1. The other copies they had were third prints, so somebody saved me this one. Thank you, I appreciate it. But what else caught my attention besides the what I like, the cover art, and that's what it looks like right there, and you could see Fall River being the publisher, and that's what's on back. Is it's heavy, 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 heavy. The book has no dust jacket. The artwork's printed right on the hardcover boards. Library binding is what I've typically referred to these things as. But it's heavy, heavy book. And as I flip through, note it is illustrated by William O'Connor. And I must say, William O'Connor, I dig the work. There's a bunch of William O'Connor illustrations in this book. And I've talked about Frankenstein before. I love the movie 1931 Frankenstein starring Boris Karloff. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein book, however, is so much different. Frankenstein or the modern Prometheus. So much different than the movie. It's almost unrecognizable. In fact, I would say it's a different totally. You watch the movie, you go read the book, there's very little that correlates between the two. But anyway, it was a good book. Interesting, and the differences, it's a different story, different feel, different all that kind of stuff. But I like the book, and I've got some neat copies that I have shown you. But I wanted to show you this gem for $10. I thought was really, really cool. Author's introduction, but it's chock full of artwork and just kind of showing you what it looks like as I flip through. Every page looks good. There's no blank white page. There's no white pages with writing on them. They've all got some art involved. And I don't know how people make a book like this. I venture to guess the original price wasn't $10, but there's no marked price on the cover anywhere. And that's what they had it for. Big sticker on the front said $10. But looking at this artwork, I don't know if I've ever gotten a book that was this cool for $10 at a retail store before. So I had to buy it. I said, if they got a first print, I'm getting it. They had a first print, and I got it. And I'm just showing it to you because maybe you got a Barnes & Noble somewhere nearby. maybe you want to stop in and look at their book annex. They called this section the book annex. And they did have some discount books, but they had some full price books there too. Lots of artwork. I'm not going to show you everything, but so many cool things. And when it comes to Frankenstein artwork, I want to get all I can, because the book is actually pretty descriptive of the characters. But because I think of the movie and the movie versions that have come out, I think Frankenstein has really become jumbled and confused in the minds of us all pretty much. So you read the story, you read the book, the descriptions there. But we've all seen so many different movie types, so many different types of artwork and blending and such, that this one, it seems like pretty movie-centric artwork, and I dig it. So I'm going to show you some of the big ones, but there's lots and lots of pictures, even color illustrations, non-color illustrations, and these pictures really help to tell the story. So as I flip through, I'm remembering. So here's another example of illustration types in here. They kept our good friend William O'Connor busy working on this book. But anyway, if you got a Barnes & Noble nearby, I recommend you stopping in, look volume 2. It just looks so daggum good. And it's a heavy book, heavy. The pages are slick. So they're not thick or thin. They're slightly stiff, but they're slick pages, glossy almost, if you will. And it's so much artwork that I dig. So I just had to show you. You don't usually find things like this sitting on the shelf in a new section at a new bookstore for $10. I've paid a whole lot more for a whole lot less. And the artwork is good, man. I really like it. I'll show you a little bit more. It just looks so good. I'll show you a little bit more about this. But Frankenstein, if I'm going to tell you which I like best, the 1931 Boris Karloff film is iconic for me. The James Whale film, starring Boris Karloff as the monster, is iconic for me. And the performances, and it's a really simple, basic story. And they keep it simple for me, which is something else that I dig. It battles some of the subjects, should you or shouldn't you. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Some forces should not be meddled with, especially when it comes to life and other people's lives, creating, taking, stuff like that. But anyway, I think I like the James Whale film starring Boris Karloff better than the book. That being said, the book is one of those classics that didn't disappoint me. A lot of times when I read these classics that people have been talking about since long before my grandparents were born, even, when I get to them, a lot of times I feel disappointed. They're not as good as I would have hoped or thought. And you can go on podcasts or YouTube and you can listen to reviewers talk about some of the old classic stories, and usually they're not as impressed with them as you would think they would be either. But this one was one that was satisfying. I was impressed and I was pleased with it. It gave me a much different story, but it left me feeling like I got a good story out of it. And anyway, I'm a fan. That's a neat looking picture there. I'm a fan of the book, definitely a fan of the original movie, and I had an opportunity to get this great edition here, and I figured perhaps you'd be interested in seeing it. And I've come to the end of my book here. I recommend you read it. If you haven't read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, I recommend it. And if you can get a chance to get over to Barnes & Noble, I recommend you pick one of these up. If you care about such things as print run, the store I went to had third and first printings. They had 2 first printings and one of them was beaten up. Just flip through till you see this page and look for the number line. First printings will go all the way to 1. Probably no different, first, second, third, whatever. But this was the first batch of them that were made up. The second batch would be a second print. Sometimes people care about such things, and sometimes people just want a good book on their shelf, and they don't want to be bothered with the BS like that. I'm happy for you. I really am. Anyway, I can think of no more lives to tell. So thank you for your time. I do truly appreciate it. C'est la vie, baby. Doo-doo.
I saw a woman psychiatrist, and she said I was OCD, one cool dude, and she understands the way I think right